So, professors, we are on the forms or modes of communication, and as you reckon, I just introduced to you that you could choose the verbal or you could choose the non-verbal, right? I think it makes sense. Verbal means we are going to use words, but then the words can be written or it can be spoken, that's oral. Okay, so now let's pick the verbal, define it, and look at the specific details. So verbal. Professors, based on what I've said, what would you say, or how would you define verbal communication? I want to hear your English small. So whoever is ready can do the definition for me. Verbal communication. So I can start by saying it's a form of communication that, so I think I've done half of the job for you. So it's a form of communication that ... Please complete it for me. Prof. Charles, would you try? Yes, Prof. Charles. Or you are still writing your English? Prof. Deladem, what specific words are you going to continue with? It's a form of communication that...
So I think the use of instantaneous means of communication.
Okay.
Yeah, it can be by word to word.
Okay. Okay, so Prof says that it's more instantaneous, so it's instant. So verbal communication is a form of communication that involves the use of written or spoken words to transmit information from one party to another. So you can define it as that. Okay. Now, as we have noted, it could be written, so we can have written communication and oral. Now, we need to digest this and look at some advantages and disadvantages of written communication. So in defining written communication, we can say it's a form of verbal communication that involves the use of written words only, that involve the use of written words only to transfer information. Now let's look at some of the advantages of written communication. So advantages of written communication. Professors, I'm sure you would have used this form or mode of communication before, and what are some of the advantages? You might have written a letter. You might have used, you might have typed some words on WhatsApp, right? You might have sent an email. Okay, if you don't do the manual writing, you might have typed, but you are still using written words. So which of them, what are the advantages of writing or putting your communication or information in written form? I need contributions here, professors. Don't tell me no idea, I beg you. There's an idea. Prof. Charles, what will be one benefit or advantage of?
It provides both the sender and the receiver with permanent records of the information.
Exactly. Perfectly. Perfect. That's very true. Okay. So one of the key advantages of written is that it provides that permanent record. Because it's a letter, you can keep it and always have it. So it provides that permanent record. Thank you very much. Prof. Deladen, what would you also say regarding?
I think it promotes uniformity of messages.
It is the most what?
As I said, I think it promotes uniformity of messages.
Okay, uniformity of messages. Okay. Prof. Eunice, would you add yours as well?
Said it is accurate since time is spent in thinking and composing the message.
Okay. Thank you very much. So let me write the points that you have all indicated here. So one is it provides a permanent record of the information. Good. Some of us still have letters that we receive from friends, okay, because it was put in a record form. For that matter, it is always available to us. So it provides a permanent record of the information which can be referred to. Okay, so it's a form of for future references. Person can use it. Okay. And then Prof. Eunice indicate that because it is carefully prepared, okay, it is done with much accuracy. So it is carefully prepared, and as such, it's more accurate. Because after writing a letter, you proofread it, you check whether there are mistakes. So you ensure that accuracy under written communication. And also the point that Deladen spoke about uniformity. Example, if you are sending the message to a lot of people and you write it, right? It is uniform in the sense that there's no distortion as compared to the oral. Because for the oral, if I want to communicate to Deladen and Charles and Eunice, and I use oral, especially where both of them are not seated at the same time. So I call Eunice, speak it to her or tell her. I call Deladen and there'll be distortions. Some of the things I'll tell Eunice, I may not tell Deladen or vice versa. Okay, so we say it promotes uniformity of message as you send the message in writing. So thank you for all the valid points you have given me. Let's write these few. So we have one, it provides a permanent record of the information. 2, so 3, it is more suitable. It is more suitable for official communications. So most of the, for example, if you want an employment in an organization, you have to write, right? So it's more suitable for official communications. It ensures uniformity of message transmitted to people in different locations. So that is some of the advantages. Now let's look at some of the disadvantages of writing. So if you are writing a letter, if you are typing an email, what are some of the disadvantages? So from the point that you have to take time to prepare, then I would say that written communication takes time to prepare. So it could be time wasting. So one, we can say much time is wasted in preparing for written communication. Because sometimes you even have to check the spellings, you have to pick a dictionary and make sure that, okay, after writing, you have to read it again and see if you had made mistakes. So it wastes time, much time. So it's not suitable for emergency situation. Let me add that. It is not appropriate in times of emergencies. Imagine you want to tell somebody that somebody is crossing the road and you want to tell the person danger, there's danger, and then instead of you decide to take a sheet of paper and write it. By the time you finish writing, the person would have been hit by the car. So it is not appropriate in times of what? Emergencies. The next point I would want to add is it lacks tone or cannot reveal the emotions of the sender. Please, do you understand this point? I would want you to explain this point. It lacks tone or cannot reveal the emotions of the sender. How do you understand this point? Who would try? This one I don't want to call, so please, one of you should unmute and tell us. It lacks tone or cannot reveal the emotions of the sender. Okay, let me call the gentleman among the ladies, Prof. Charles. How do you understand this point?
Okay, so it's like if the sender is writing it in a happy tone, because you're not there when the sender was writing it, you won't know if the person was writing maybe either an happy tone or an angry tone.
Okay, that is true. So it's difficult to know the emotions. Even if the person says, I'm very sad to write you this letter, how do you determine that emotion? Okay, compared to other forms of communication like the oral, right? If the person is angry, you can feel it in the tonation of the person, right? If the person is sad, you can feel it. So that is the tonation bit or the lack of emotions. I don't know how you write a letter that you are so angry, and whilst the person is reading that thing, the person can feel your anger. No, it's a bit. Okay. So it cannot reveal the emotions of the sender. That is very true. Let's move on. The last point is it cannot also give instant feedback. Okay. So there is no instant feedback. If you write a letter to someone, sometimes it takes days, even years, for the person to respond to your letter. So it's not effective when instant feedback is needed, right? So let's add that point too. So delayed feedback or feedback may not be immediate. So that is it about written. Let's look at oral communication. Now you can be smart here in case in an exam they ask you to state advantages and disadvantages of verbal communication. Then you have the luxury of combining both the advantages of oral and then written. Okay, so you can do that. So let's look at oral communication. So it's a form of verbal communication that involves only the use of spoken words. So let's write that. Okay, so professors, let's look at the advantages of oral communication. So this one you are using spoken words, okay, through your mouth. And I think we know examples of oral communication, right? We'll list the examples later. Or better, so I'll give you an assignment to list as many forms of written communication and oral communication for me, which I think would be fair, right? But the common one we know is the phone call or telephone calls, right? So let's look at the advantages of oral communication. So professors, what are the advantages? I think here we can be smart, okay? We can adjust some of the points we have already written. So oral communication, one we can say feedback is instant, right? Feedback is instant or immediate. That's one of it. So it's like we can turn the disadvantages of the written, right? Sometimes you have to be smart and make the work easier. So there is instant or immediate feedback. That's point one. Please, my professors, add on more points. I beg you. Yes. Oh, I want the point to flow. All professors have not eaten this morning.
I think the recipient can feel the sender's emotion at that point.
Okay. So it also reveals the emotion of the sender. So if the person is talking to you and is angry, there you can feel it. So it reveals the emotions of the sender. Okay. What else can we write or add? So it is also very appropriate in times of emergencies. Very appropriate during emergencies. Okay, professors, is that all, or you want to add? I think we would add the fourth one, and then maybe we'll look at the disadvantage. You can say it's a quick way. It's a quick or faster way to get information to a large crowd at a go. It's very quick. Imagine at assembly, if you want to write a letter to each student, just to tell them that there's a holiday tomorrow. By the time you finish writing, I'm sure the day would have been over. But using an oral communication, you can quickly give this information to this large crowd at a go. Okay. Okay, professors, let's look at the disadvantages of oral communication. Disadvantages of oral communication. So, professors, what would you say on this one quickly before we end the session? So we can easily turn the advantages of writing, right, into the disadvantages. So one, there is no permanent record. Oral communication does not give you a permanent record of the message or information. You say it and it's gone. Unlike a written one where you can refer to, right? There's no permanent record under oral communication. What else? What else could be a disadvantage or a problem? We can also say it is subject to distortions. Okay, subject to distortions. Okay, because imagine if you are speaking to a large people, some will hear, some will not hear, some will hear and not hear well. You say, oh, the boy is going to school. Somebody say, you only heard the boy is coming to school. Right. So there's distortions in oral communication. But if it's written, everybody can see that, okay, right? So that is one of also the disadvantages. The next point is that the mood of the sender the message. And even the receiver, the mood of the sender or the receiver can affect the message. Imagine you are talking to somebody, say, oh, please, I'm angry. Okay, but if it's a written one, the person can wait. When he's free, he can read it, right? So the mood or the state of the sender or receiver can also affect the message. Okay. The next point I'll add is that it is also, you see, when you are communicating or, okay, sometimes imagine, sometimes you can respond to something and later you say, oh, no, I shouldn't have said this. Okay, so it sometimes leads to, it sometimes leads to rash response or feedback. Okay. You are not, because the person is speaking to you, also want to reply. You end up saying things that you didn't take time or you didn't plan to say. Okay, so it also leads to rash response or feedback.